So whenever we're talking about validation and compassionate communication with somebody with dementia, I want you to, I was thinking about this right before we started earlier this morning. I want you to think about if you've ever had a child or if you've ever been a teacher to somebody, if you taught school, if you taught piano, if you taught guitar, if you've ever had to teach a child something, the way that you talk to them, the way that you are patient, and the way that you give them that time. We never want to talk to somebody with dementia like they're a child at all. That's demeaning. But we tend to lose our patience and we tend to lose our grace when we're talking to them. And if we could go back and think of, I remember when my child was learning piano and her little feet didn't even touch the floor. And her piano teacher was so patient with her and talked her through that. She never said, "We talked about this last week. Why don't you remember it? You should know this. You know better." If we could just remember that they're doing the best they can, even when it doesn't feel like they're doing the best they can. They didn't choose this. They didn't do anything to make it happen. And that goes a long way with us to remember that they're having a hard time. They're not giving us a hard time. If you need to put that on a piece of paper somewhere, many of you have heard me say several times, I actually have it on, I made it, and it's framed, and it says the dementia patient is having the dementia patient is not giving you a hard time, the dementia patient is having a hard time. So then we have to learn the skills to be able to communicate with them. And so compassionate communication, I'm so sorry, my phone. We've got to think about all these things with compassionate communication. What's your body language saying? Your face, your tone of voice, your emotions, and then how fast are you moving and how fast are you talking? What we found is about 80% of our communication issues with somebody with dementia can be fixed with our approach. That it's our approach that many times triggers their challenging behaviors, because, and most of the time, we're certainly not doing it on purpose. We wouldn't do any of this to intentionally do anything to bring any type of harm, but we approach from the side, or we approach from the back, or our tone, or we bring our mood and our emotions into the conversation with them. And because we know their amygdala is still intact, they pick up on our mood and our emotions, and they mirror us. Just like they will mirror our actions, they will mirror our emotions and our behavior. So making sure that our tone isn't bossy, but that our tone stays friendly, which can be difficult to do. Keeping in mind that those emotions of yours actually precede you into the room. And so if you're going in and we know that it's going to be, we're going to be doing something in the bathroom, whatever it is that we may be having to do, stopping at the door, taking that deep breath and getting ourselves ready to go in and do this. That deep breath goes a long way for us. Okay, here we go. We can do this. Turning the music on. If you have to, go to that Wonder Woman pose, that Superman pose, where you put both hands on your hips and you stand there a minute. I've got this. That's positive self-talk. Before you go in and you start having this compassionate communication with your loved one, gather yourself and start to learn to move a little slower in your actions and your talk. We tend to go fast, 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 fast. I need you to be on my schedule. And in reality, we're going to be on their schedule. One way or another, we're going to be on their schedule, because the quicker we try to make them get in that car, and the more we try to reason and be rational with them about I'm running late, the more late you're going to be. because we're trying to get them to go someplace with us that they can't go. They would if they could. So when we're talking about compassionate communication, this little chart is really good at showing us a breakdown. 55% of communication is our body language. 38% of communication is our tone of voice, and 7% is our words. That's amazing. I have often said that, especially whenever our day program was open, that I could get people to do an awful lot sometimes just because I went in smiling and stayed like this the whole time, even if I didn't feel like it. And my tone would be up. And I tried very hard to leave anything else that was going on at the door. That's hard to do. It's very, very hard to do. And it's really hard to do when you're living in the house and you're trying to stay like that all the time. But if your words don't match your body language, they're going to pick up on it. Like I said before, we know from research, we know from brain banks that people who die with dementia, their hippocampus is almost gone at the end of life. So those facts and that knowledge is gone, but that amygdala is intact, so they can still read us. That amygdala is what is fight, flight, freeze in us, but it also is how we read other people. And so they can read us. They're trying to process the words that you're saying, but they're also reading your body language and your facial expressions and your tone of voice. So they will respond, like I said, they will mirror your tone. They will mirror your body language. And they don't want to be told what to do. None of us want to be told what to do. Dad, I said, get your pants on. We've got to get to the, well, I'm not a child and you're talking to me like I'm a child. And I still realize that the way that you're talking to me, the tone that you're using with me, and I can't even figure out how to get my pants on. And it's your fault anyway, because you're stupid. Because that's the only place that I can go with that, because I can't be reasonable or rational. They're almost always willing to help us if we make it about us. I need your help with. If you could come help me with this. So turning it into assistance, that we're asking them for assistance, and then making sure that we're using eye contact also. Some of the things we don't want to do. We know that the ability to be reasonable and rational is stored up here in the frontal part of the brain. And regardless of what type of dementia they have, that is usually one of the first things that they lose. One of the exceptions is sometimes vascular dementia, if that's all they have is vascular dementia, because then it's wherever the damage is in the brain due to the stroke or due to the brain damage. But in most all of the other dementias, the ability to be reasonable and rational is one of the first things that they lose. We could talk until we're purple. They can nod their head yes and turn right around and go and do the very thing that we just talked with them about. So I also hope that you already know arguing with somebody with dementia is a lost cause. You will never win. It is not a path that you want to go down, because they're going to get upset. You're going to get upset. They're going to reset shortly, and you're not. You're still going to be the one that's upset about it. Not being confrontational, not reminding them that they forgot. And that's where we teach everybody, lose the word remember from your vocabulary. When you say to someone, remember we, remember I, remember that, what you're saying to them is, hey, you forgot. So you're reminding them that they forgot. So we start teaching our staff. We also teach, it's hard to do, and you'll catch yourself. Remember yesterday, we physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, because they come in every day and say, well, remember yesterday well, no, they don't. And sometimes that can trigger I didn't even see you yesterday, stupid. And you know, it can trigger a behavior. Now we're not getting any therapy done. So they don't remember. So just don't use that word. Another thing is families will come in sometimes and say the big bad, remember me. Why do I use that word? We don't want to question recent memory. So again, we're visiting. What do you have for lunch today? Well, heck, I don't remember what I had for lunch today. Most of the time, they certainly don't remember, but you're asking them recent memory. And then I think the hardest one, not taking it personally. Even if they use your name, it's not about you. It's about the disease, and you're the one that's there. And if you're the primary care partner, you're going to play the dual role of good guy, bad guy. You're the good guy. You're the one that I need to be there. You're the one I'm going to go to. In fact, I probably don't even want you out of my sight. I might even stand in front of you all the time to make sure I can see you. But you're the bad guy because you're the one bossing me around and telling me to take my medicine and bath and all that. So I'm mad at you, and you're dumb and you're stupid and you're whatever else, but don't get out of my sight because I need you. So we play that dual role. So here's some do's. And one of our favorite words, we said not to use the word remember, is the word okay. Whenever we say okay to somebody, all we're saying is I heard you. Okay doesn't mean you're right. Yes, I stole all your money. We're not saying that. We're just saying, okay, I heard you that you're concerned that I stole all your money. That's what we're saying. I heard you. And okay, using our tone. So if they are upset, you're the one that took all my money. Okay, well, we're going to let me get that fixed. We're going to do something. I'm now mirroring their tone. So we want to give those brief, short, one sentence explanations if possible, and then use the same words over and over and over. If you change up your words, if they're asking the same question over and over and you change your answer, they just heard something completely different. So we use the same word over and over, repeating it the same way. Keeping in mind, it takes about 20 seconds for comprehension. 20 seconds is a long time of silence. If I just go about 10 seconds, some of you would probably start checking to see if it had gone off. Something's wrong with my sound. 20 seconds is a long time to sit in silence, but that's how long it may take them for that message to reach their brain and then for them to be able to react or respond. So please keep that in mind to give them at least 20 seconds. Agree with them or distract them to a different subject or activity. If they're getting worked up, wound up, that is where lots of times we want to leave this room or this area, and then we want to go to one of our favorite distractions. Accepting the blame, even if it's something that's a fantasy, like you stole all my money. That's a pretty common one. You're the one that took my money. You know, I may try because one of my go-tos with that is, well, I'm calling the bank. We're going to take care of that right now. And boy, I get on the phone and I call the bank and I get it taken care of. Of course, I'm not calling the bank. I'm calling somebody else. I'm using a therapeutic story and I'm going to get it fixed. I'm going to get it taken care of. And sometimes they have to talk to the bank, but I'm going to have somebody on the phone who knows what I'm doing. And we're going to talk to the bank. And then somebody's baking cookies because I can smell it. We're going to distract over to something else, even if it's just for a little bit. A person with dementia can have one thought at a time, where we can be sitting here reading these slides, listening to what I'm saying, the dog's barking, I'm actually cooking, I might even be texting. I'm doing several things at one time. They can't do it. One thought at a time. The 4 best things to use for distraction. Number 1 is food, their favorite. It's usually going to be sweet. They start to lose their taste, and so the sweeter the better. Number 2 is their music, not your music, their music. Typically that's from their music set. We all have a music set. It was usually the ages of about 10 to 25. For some of us, that's going to be questionable when we get older, but everybody has a music set between about 10 and 25. So go and get their music. Pets are another fantastic distraction. Animals and children. And if you don't have real animals or real children around, use YouTube and put in babies laughing. You can get some. Would you look at that? Look at that baby, and you're showing them this on the iPad or on a computer or something that's pretty big. Would you look at those little ducks falling off of They're some of the cutest animal and children videos to use for distraction. Make sure also you're responding to their feelings and not their words. So if it is the "you took all my money," what's going on? Is this really about money? Did we have a hard time getting dressed this morning? Could I not find something which made me think you're stealing from me? Could it possibly be that with this thing on, all I'm seeing is a bunch of bandits and robbers? Because that's what a person with dementia's mind sees as a bad guy, because who else covers their face? We finally got that figured out a year in. Being very, very patient, having a whole lot of grace, keeping in mind, how would you talk to that child, but keeping in mind also bring to it dignity and respect. So we're not going to talk to them like a child, but we're going to have the patience we would as if they were a child, but we're going to keep the respect and the dignity there. This is a grown man who's having a hard time putting his pants on. This is a grown woman who can't figure out what to do in the bathroom. Not scolding. Empathy, not sympathy. Not feeling sorry for, but trying to stand in the shoes of them. I love this quote, even though it's really hard. Once dementia is diagnosed, the patient is excused 100% of the time. And I can already hear some of you saying, "But Holly, you don't know my mother. You don't know my husband. He's always been ornery." Ugh, but once there's that diagnosis, can you draw the line and go, when is it them and when is it the disease? It's the disease. It's affecting their brain, and that brain controls every single thing that goes on in their body. If they were doing things deliberately to aggravate you, they'd have a different diagnosis. That falls on the DSM. That's a type of mental illness. That's not dementia. They're not doing it on purpose, even though it seems like maybe some days they are. They're not crazy. They're not lazy. And this is huge. They're saying and doing normal things for someone with dementia. Everything they're doing is normal for someone with dementia. We can't control the disease. We can just control our reaction to it. And I even like to change that word to the way we respond instead of the way we react. We control the way we respond. Their disability is memory loss. So keep this in mind. They can't remember that they can't remember that they can't remember. So we have to continue to reassure them, even if we get some times where we go, well, there they are. They appeared normal. Their reality is very different than ours is. And even though we may get those glimpses and we may get those moments, they still have this progressive disease. They're scared all the time. The majority of people with dementia are scared all the time, especially earlier in the disease, because they know something is wrong. As it progresses, it's not as much, but earlier, they know something's going on. So how do people react when they're afraid? We've seen a whole year of people being afraid. We've seen a whole year of people being mad and ugly and mean, because the easiest emotion is anger. Add to that a brain disease. I don't know what's going on, so I go straight to that anger, which when you get down to the root of anger, it's almost always fear. So you may see some of these. They become uncooperative, they're hostile, they're angry, they're agitated. All of that has to do with they're scared. That's what it comes down to. They're scared. They're not going to remember your reassurances, so keep saying them over and over. If they're asking you the same question over and over and over, it's because they believe it's the first time they asked. Go back to 10 years. Would they have ever done that? Of course they wouldn't. If they knew how crazy it was making you, would they do it? Of course they would. Well, I hope they wouldn't. Some of you may, well, yeah, no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't ask 40 times, when are we? Also keep in mind, people with dementia don't steal. They don't steal things. They go shopping. They shop for things. And some people will say, well, they hide. They will hide things because they're protecting them. They're putting them in a safe place. And they're putting them in a safe place so that they don't lose it or so that you don't get it. But it's not stealing. They're shopping and they're hiding. And part of that comes from anxiety. Another thing they'll do with anxiety is they'll shadow you. So this next part, we're going to switch over to validation therapy. I love this cartoon, if you can see it. It's the man, he's up at the parking, he's trying to get his parking validated. And she says, I don't reimburse, I validate. I listen and acknowledge how difficult it was for you to find a place to park. So validation therapy actually was a concept that was developed in the 1960s by a social worker named Naomi Thiel. And we're going to watch a short video at the very end of some, if you've never seen this video, it is some of the best validation therapy you'll ever see. And she concluded, because all the way back then, before we were even calling it Alzheimer's, we were using people getting senile. They thought that the best thing to do was to use something called reality therapy, where you forced them to come to reality. They used this all the way up until the 90s, by the way, the 1990s. And she was one of the first to figure out that was cruel. So if you want to become less stressed, literally try to become part of the world of dementia. Keeping in mind that it does affect their brain, their ability to reason and be rational is affected early in the disease again. It's also cruel to try to bring them into our reality. Redirection and validation are the keys. So we've talked about ways to redirect, and then how to validate. What that means is that you're acknowledging the feelings of the person. You're trying to say that their feelings are true. Denying their feelings invalidates the individual. It makes them less than. If you were to say to that person who's saying, you stole all my money, you don't even know what you're talking about. You've got dementia. You've just invalidated them. That's not respectful. There's certainly no dignity in that. Time is very different for somebody with dementia. It's not sequential. So they may be in the present in one moment, they may be in the past in the next, and in the future, that there's no, time doesn't mean anything. A spouse or a child may become a sibling or a parent. And I want to take just a second to focus on this. They have not always been a spouse or a parent, but they've always been a son or a daughter. They've always been a brother or a sister. So if a wife becomes mama or an adult daughter becomes sissy, that's very normal for dementia. You're still someone important. You're still someone that is my caregiver. I love you, but how could I possibly have a wife when I'm just 8 or I'm 16? So those relationships drop away, but the love remains. So just keep that in mind. They go back to who they've always been. They've always been a son or a daughter, brother or sister, grandchild, niece, nephew. The goals of validation therapy is to restore their self-worth, to reduce their stress, to work. It also helps them work toward unfinished business, especially as they're approaching end of life and they go through a life review. It can help reduce the need for chemical and physical restraints. And then it also, you will see in this video, you'll see some verbal communication come back in somebody who become nonverbal. So imagine this scenario real quick. You're getting dressed for work. You've worked in the same office for 35 years. Today's like any other day. You're having trouble tying your tie. You wonder whether your wife is at home. She's great at tying your tie. So you call out her name. She comes in the room and says, where are you going? You tell her that you're going to work. You've got 10 minutes. You're going to be late. And she says, you've been retired for 10 years. You don't even have a job. What you've got is dementia. That's not validation therapy. Validation therapy would be, okay, I just made your favorite breakfast. Let's go in here and eat first, and then I'll drive you to work so you won't be late. I've got your coffee going. Come on. That's validation therapy. Put the tie on them. Tie the tie. Distract over to breakfast. You might even get in the car and take a ride, but you end up at the Sonic getting an ice cream. And now we're not even thinking about work. It restores their dignity. We're going to watch this video. I hope I have this on right. I'm going to stop share it and then start it back up again because I don't think I turned on the sound. I did not. Please stay with me. It's about 4 minutes. It is worth watching. If you've never seen this, it is powerful. You might want to grab a Kleenex. I will just tell you in advance, the first time no one told me that. This is validation therapy at its best. Kathy, can you see in here?
When people are very old and deteriorated and no one enters their world and they're just sitting there, they will withdraw inward more and more. And their desperate need for connection is all now inside. And if a person is all alone, even if they're very, very deteriorated, there's a longing for this kind of closeness. Mrs. Wilson? Hello. You want me to sit? Can you see me good? Gladys Wilson is a wonderful example of a person who is in the phase of repetitive motion, where people use movements, repetitive movements, because they don't have any more speech or very little speech, but they have human needs that need to be expressed. You're crying. Crying, you have a tear right here in your face. You have a little pain. You don't want me to touch you. You're very sad. Can you see me? Is it scary? Are you afraid? And if this person sits with their eyes closed, rocking back and forth, and maybe there's a tear coming down, there's a need there. Here. There's a little tear that's coming out. Do you feel it? You feel a little tear? If you gently use touch, and I touched Gladys Wilson for the fingertips right here on the cheek, is where the mother usually touches a child. If you touch an infant there, it looks up, and every cell remembers where it was touched by the mother. And often that person knows, even if they can't say a word at that moment, they won't talk, or they don't want to talk, but there's a communication. And that person is no longer alone. Can you let me in a little bit? You think? Just a little? You think I could be with you and Jesus for a minute? Jesus loves me, yes, I know, for the Bible tells me so. I used music, because when speech is gone, music, especially with Gladys Wilson, it was religious music, because there's emotion tied to it and safety tied to it. So I used her old church songs. Jesus loves me, yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. What I did was, when she moved, I moved with her. And when I was singing, because she didn't sing with me, so I matched the intensity of my voice to the intensity of her movement. And pretty soon, for a split second, we became one person. Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. So at one point, when she got very quiet and very peaceful, and my voice became very quiet as hers and very peaceful, and my breathing slowed to her breathing, she pulled me to her, and I moved with her. And for her, at that moment, I believe I was a symbol of her mom. Can you open your eyes now? Do you see me? Feel safe and warm? Yes? Can you sing with me? He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the mothers and the fathers. He's got the mothers and the fathers in his hand. He's got the mothers and the fathers in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand. The breakthrough doesn't happen every time. The person will not always open their eyes and look at you. But if you keep trying and you keep centering yourself and really look at that person and really mirror their movements, maybe not this time, but the next time you come, you'll have a communication. You feel safe. You feel safe? Yeah. With Jesus? Yeah. And me?
That's validation therapy. That's amazing what she was able to get. That video is powerful. That particular woman, the staff was refusing to work with her because they said she hit. She hit. You saw what she was doing. She wasn't hitting. She was in that rhythmic. She was keeping time. Naomi wasn't afraid of her. And she was able, that's Naomi, the one who coined validation therapy. So that is powerful. I've seen it probably over 100 times. I tear up every single time when that woman starts singing that song. Oh my goodness, it is so powerful. And that is a great video. It's on YouTube. You can just put in Gladys and Naomi and it comes up to use with other people to get them to understand what validation is with somebody with dementia. Oh, it'll be part of the, when you get this PowerPoint, you'll get it also. So I sure appreciate y'all being here. I know we went over just a few minutes. This could easily be an hour program, but just keep it in mind, the empathy, the validation. And like she said, she just got on her level. She was connecting as mom. She didn't go in trying to connect as anything other than let me just, first of all, she wasn't afraid of her and she showed the staff. There's other videos of them where she showed the staff, this isn't somebody to be afraid of. She's not hitting, she's communicating. She's doing the best she can. All right, I appreciate y'all very much. You'll get these slides and the video later. Thank you.